Good day, everyone, and welcome. This is the CIA Challenge Exam, everything you need to know. This is a webcast brought to you by our friends at CIA Learning and the Institute of Internal Auditors. My name is Marie Lilly, and I'll be your host for today's webcast. We're delighted to have you with us. A couple of things about your console that you see in front of you. You will see today's slide presentation. You will hear our speakers. There will be no video at this point. We want you to concentrate on the slides. You do have a Q&A feature on your console, so if you have questions at any time, you can certainly use that. You'll be able to see the bios of our speakers today on the right-hand side. And we have Jonathan Jones with us. He is the manager of IIA's Global Certification Administration here at the IIA. And we have Jamie Shine with us. She's the Corporate and IT Audit Manager from Quick Trip Corporation. And Jamie is a very seasoned faculty member for us, and she's going to be guiding you on some of the specifics about the challenge exam today. So here's what we're going to be looking at. Since it's vital that you understand the CIA program and the requirements, as well as the most effective ways to study in order to pass the CIA Challenge exam, therefore earning your CIA certification, we're going to talk about the certification program itself. We'll also cover the challenge exam as an overview. We'll do some exam preparation, and we'll talk about the CIA Challenge Exam Study Guide. We'll also talk about some study tips and test-taking tips, some links and resources, and some questions. And as we go along, I'm going to send out a copy of those slides for you. And let's bring on Jonathan first and talk about the certification itself. Jonathan?
All right. Thank you very much, Marie, and welcome to everybody who's joining. Really love these sessions. It's a chance for us to connect. You guys see that the chat is available, so feel free to interact there. But it really is a good chance for us to give an overview of the CIA and specifically this challenge exam program, which we are really excited about. It opens a lot of new pathways for individuals. But the first thing that we wanted to do was to touch bases on the CIA program. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly the CIA brings with it. So on the screen, you'll see a global map, and it gives you overall numbers of approximate CIAs around the globe. Lots of countries, lots of areas that are represented. And you'll see that there are still some areas that are developing, but even with that, we're looking at over 170,000 CIAs. And I'm sure that count has gone up since this was calculated, but really is a remarkable network if you look at that. Pretty much each continent is covered. So this means whether you are a prospective auditor or you are a seasoned auditor, when you earn the CIA, it really does open up not only a network of individuals, but a network of companies. Maybe this is something that you guys want to be in for the long term. Maybe you're not really sure which direction you want to go since audit is so broad. There's lots of disciplines within that umbrella. Once you earn the CIA, it really does show that not only are you a leader in the audit field, but also the many disciplines of internal audit. So we're really proud of this statistic. It shows diversity, it shows versatility, and more important, when we talk to individuals who are really the decision makers in a lot of these companies and a lot of the audit shops maybe that you would work in, they know about the CIA. And when we did poll them, you'll see on your screen the percentage was 94% said if you're working in internal audit, we want you to have the CIA. So if this is a new field for you, then you pick the right certification, or if you're seasoned, then we hope that you can recognize the value in the CIA just looking at this graphic alone. Now on this slide, we talk very briefly about the certification process. And the reason why this slide is so short is because it really is this simple. It's a matter of applying into the program, which is the very first step. There's application requirements, which basically are that you have to be a part of approved accounting bodies, which we will touch on in just a moment. Once you submit your documentation and you are approved into the program, it's a matter of studying and testing. Jamie's going to make sure that we all get 100%. And then the final step is just to maintain your certification, right? So once you become certified, you've done all the hard work, you've passed the exam, now you just want to maintain it. And that includes your continuing education, which not only maintains your certification, but it also makes sure that you're aware of all the changes and the nuances that happens when you have industry like internal audit, where things are changing almost every minute. So it's a very, very simple process, and one that we'd like to think is easy to maintain for our candidates and members. So we want to jump into basic information about the challenge exam. For any of you who are familiar with the IIA, or maybe you've attempted to take or earn the CIA in a previous time, you will know that there was a three-part exam that is the standard exam. And it's usually anywhere between 100 to 125 questions per exam. The first thing you'll notice about the challenge exam is that it is 150 multiple choice questions. So you're already looking at, a third basically of the questions that you would have to answer. Doesn't mean that it's easier, by no means, but it is more compact. So it's going to change the way that you study and the way that you prepare for it. So the final piece here is that it's available via online testing or at a test center. So just like the standard CIA 3-part, if you do feel comfortable and you want to go ahead and take the exam from the comfort of your home and it's available in your region, that is something that you're able to do. Or you can go to the standard Pearson VUE testing centers, and there's a ton of those around the world where you'll be able to take the exam, wherever is the closest location to you. It's a really easy process. You just punch in your address or even like your zip code, and it'll show you all of the exams within a certain mile radius that you can sit and take the exam. When you enroll and you're getting approved into the challenge exam, you are going to receive, it's frequently called a bundle, and this is what's included within it. So you have up to 3 years to complete the program. So that's a pretty common question that we get. Once I enroll, is this something that I have to do immediately? And the answer is no. If you're unsuccessful the first attempt, that's okay. There are going to be additional testing windows where you can retake the exam, and you're able to retake at a discounted fee. So you will not pay the same amount as you would when you first enroll into the program. You also receive 1 complimentary exam attempt. When you first get approved, you have, I believe it's 180 days to sit for that first complimentary attempt. And then after that, you have, the remaining portion of the 3 years to take the retakes as many times as you need to. There is no cap on the amount of retakes that you have. There's customized study material, and that includes more than 1,000 practice questions, and it does get into the content, some of the question structure, and really narrowing down on the standards and what you would need to be prepared for when you get ready to sit for the exam. And of course, if you're an IA member, then you receive a discounted price on the exam cost. If you're not an IIA member, you can reach out to your local IIA affiliate or chapter in order to join. You can get a list of the affiliates in your area just by going to the website www.theiia.org. On this slide, you'll see a breakdown of the syllabus. And again, for anybody who's taken the standard 3-part exam, then you'll be familiar with a lot of domains. And that's one thing that maybe, some people will get tripped up on if they're taking a standard 3-part exam, which is, there's like maybe 5 or 6 domains within that one exam part. So here you'll see that it's broken down into business knowledge, the practice of internal auditing, and the essentials of internal auditing. A lot of you may recognize some of that vernacular from the Part 2 exam, and the Part 3 exam specifically does focus on the business knowledge. Obviously, the essentials and the practice, that's really a combined effort between CIA Parts 1 and 2. So when you look at the syllabus, you can kind of see how each one of those exam parts are represented in really an almost equal fashion. The next slide talks about the program timeline. But one quick thing I wanted to go back to, which is on the syllabus. I'm actually going to backtrack. So one thing that we've noticed is if you are a CPA, there tends to be maybe a little more overlap as opposed to some of the other accounting bodies and associations in a positive way. So that means you're probably maybe a little more prepared than some of the other accounting bodies. We found a higher pass percentage with those individuals. I think it's hovering somewhere around maybe like 54, 55%. So when you start to dig into the syllabus, we think that you'll find some similarities that may kind of accelerate the learning curve for certain accounting bodies. So we definitely encourage you to really kind of dive into the syllabus as you continue your training and getting prepared to take the exam. So back to this slide, which talks about the program timeline. The current application window is June. So if you want to, you're able to apply right now. Your first exam attempt window is going to be in August, so that's roughly about 2 months. And if you happen to miss June or you feel like, hey, I'm not ready yet, then you can also apply in our next application window, which is going to be in September, and this is September 1. The next paragraph talks about the retake registration and the scheduling, which is available all year. So once you are in the program, you're able to register for the retake, pretty much around the year. However, you can only test, meaning actually sit to take the exam during designated months. So August is going to be the next window. November will be the window after that. And then February 2023 is just a little bit further in the distance. But that gives you an idea of how often it's ran. Usually every 3 months or so, you'll have another opportunity to retake. So we talked about the exam, syllabus, when you're able to test, a little bit of what to expect, which we're going to learn more from with our next presenter. But now we just want to talk about who's eligible, right? So interested, want to jump in. You have to be an active CPA or CA, chartered accountant, from one of the approved qualified accounting bodies. Remember, we go through the syllabus and we make sure that everything aligns in that you are capable and prepared to take the exam. We don't want anyone to jump into the program if they are not ready. So that's the reason why it's somewhat restricted. There could be in the future additions, but as of right now, these are the core accounting bodies that we feel are most prepared to pass the exam. There is a QR code on the screen, and that is going to link you to the web link that's right above it. There are about 18 or so accounting bodies right now that are on the list. Some of the major ones are listed to the right: ICAI, ACCA, CPA Canada, There's quite a few more. Some of the names I can't even pronounce, but obviously they've been vetted and gone through our process. And again, we feel that the individuals that belong to these associations in these accounting bodies are definitely prepared to actually pass the exam. And with that being said, I'm going to turn the presentation over back to Marie.
Thank you so much. And it's time now to bring up our other speaker, Jamie, and she's going to talk about preparing for the CIA Challenge exam. Jamie, welcome.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for having me here today, and thanks for sharing all that great information, Jonathan. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how you can set yourself up for success when you're taking the CIA Challenge exam and how you can prepare for it. So first of all, you're in a fantastic position already, because when you register for the CIA Challenge exam and you get that bundle, you're getting the training materials already. And the Challenge Exam Study Guide is a fantastic prep course. It's a fully online learning experience. I've gotten to go through the materials myself, and I feel that they're very user-friendly. They're very easy to use. I actually used the CIA learning system myself when I was taking the CIA exam a long time ago. And I loved that it was online. I loved that it was easy to read the lessons online. So you can read online. You also can download the files to your e-reader, which is great as well, because if you don't have internet access, then you can have your Kindle or whatever e-reader you use with you. Maybe you're flying on a plane, and you can have it at all times. So that's really nice to have. And once you've downloaded that, it's yours to keep. The access to the online test bank of questions is for a year. You have 1,000 practice exam questions, and the exam itself is only 150 questions. So you're getting a lot of practice questions, and it's really going to help you testing your comprehension and can you apply these concepts. Something that people sometimes forget about the CIA exam, I find that when people aren't as well prepared, it's usually not that they didn't study the standards. It's usually that they didn't study how to apply the standards. And especially people who've never worked in an internal audit environment before, maybe they've only done public accounting or they've done external audit, it can be challenging to know how to apply those concepts. So that's where this material really is helpful. It helps you apply the concepts directly. And I'll say I was actually working in public accounting when I sat for the CIA exam. I was starting to do some internal audit outsourcing, and now I'm an internal auditor. So it was super helpful to me. But my friends that I was studying with at the same time, they had an advantage in that they were already internal auditors, whereas I had done very little internal audit. So I feel like the CIA learning system, which is the same, essentially the same course, but this is geared toward the challenge exam, was very helpful to me because it helped me learn how to specifically apply these concepts. And the practice questions are great for that. How do you access the practice questions? That's a great question somebody sent in. So when you log on to the site, you're going to have, I think it's 13 practice quizzes as well as one pre-test, which is basically a mock exam. And you can take the quizzes over and over again. You're going to get different questions every time you take the quizzes. So you may say 13 quizzes, that doesn't add up to 1,000 practice exam questions. That's because the software is automatically cycling them through, so you'll get different questions every time. The study guide also includes a glossary of terms. I highly recommend going through that. You can make your own flashcards if you want, or you can use it as flashcards. And then it also is going to have a video tutorial that provides an overview of the IPPF components or the standards. And really, the CIA Challenge exam focuses very strongly on the standards. The CIA exam focuses very strongly on the standards, on do you have the fundamental knowledge and can you apply these fundamental principles to be a good internal auditor. You have access to this online study tool for an entire year after you've registered. And so again, I think this is a great resource for you to use. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can use them. Another question came in that was really good. Are the materials only reading materials, or are they interactive videos? So that's a great question. You will have reading materials to learn about the standards, learn about the content. You're learning about basically the entire syllabus. And then you also are going to have interactive quizzes. If you need a little bit more, you can take the on-demand course if you need an actual instructor. So when it comes to the reading materials, you can read them online, again, or you can download them to your own device. And if you want more detail, you can there are a lot of links in the reading materials to specific IIA guidance and resources. Now, some of the IIA guidance is members only. I highly recommend, if you're going to pursue your CIA certification, to go ahead and get an IIA membership. Personally, I've saved a lot of money having an IIA membership because the cost of my membership is a lot less than what I would be paying for the differences in exam fees. It's a lot more expensive as a non-member, as well as a lot of the continuing education requirements, the CPE that I get huge discounts for being a member. So I recommend joining if that's an option to you. And a lot of that guidance, you're able to see it if you're a member. Some of it you can see as a non-member as well. But those additional resources are very helpful as well. And then again, these quizzes are wonderful when you're trying to figure out, okay, I've read all this material, but how well do I understand it? This exam is not about memorization. This exam is about comprehension. It's about proficiency. And so these 13 section quizzes are wonderful in helping you understand how well do I really know this material? How well can I actually apply it? And then we've got, again, that final practice exam, which is kind of a mock exam. Going through that exam helps you kind of simulate what it might be like to be in that room taking the final exam. Again, there's 1,000 practice questions, and you're going to get immediate feedback as well as the rationale. So when you're taking those section quizzes, if you choose the wrong answer, it's going to tell you why it was the wrong answer. When I was studying for the exam, this was really helpful to me as well, because sure, it's great to know what the right answer is, but I needed to know why. Why did I miss that question? So if you get it right, it also gives you the feedback on why it's right. I recommend if you get a question right, don't skip over the rationale. Go ahead and read it. Understand, why did I get the right answer? Did I know the reason, or was I just guessing, and did I get lucky when I guessed? And then some of you are asking questions about, what if I need a little more than that? What if I need something a little more interactive? There's a supplemental exam prep course that you can purchase. It's optional. You don't have to do this. This is an on-demand exam prep course, and it provides an overview of the standards. It's available only in English, and it's delivered through video segments. So if you need something delivered by an actual instructor, I think this is a great option for you. And all of the CIA Learning System instructors are wonderful. It's got 3 different modules. It's a 14-hour course. But something that I do like about it, sometimes it's challenging to take an instructor course because you're having to go around the instructor schedule, right? Something that's nice about the on-demand course is that it provides you the flexibility to study on your own. So you can go through these modules anytime you want, but then you do still have these video segments with an instructor. So it provides kind of that extra instruction. And you can register for that at the link on the screen. And I know they're working on uploading the slides as well. So that's a great option for some of you, particularly if you find that you're having a hard time on those quizzes, you're not understanding why you're missing questions. I would recommend looking at registering for this because this is going to give you some additional support. We're going to talk a little bit about some study tips. First of all, figure out what study method works best for you. And a lot of that is kind of about knowing yourself, right? For some people, it's going to be most helpful to study by reading things out loud. You need to hear it. For some people, it's going to be about going through the practice questions. For some people, it's going to be about having that dedicated time. And be realistic. Sometimes people may think, oh, well, I've done some internal auditing, so I should be able to take this test and just pass it. Be realistic. You need to make sure that you really understand the standards, everything in the syllabus, and that you can apply it. So the amount of time that you're going to want to dedicate to studying is going to be different for every person. Expect to study at least 50 or more hours, though, but it may take more than that for you, depending on how long you've been an internal auditor and also what your audit shop looks like. If you work for a very informal audit department, then you may need to study a little bit longer because maybe you haven't experienced some of the things that are going to be covered on the exam. Obviously, we want to avoid procrastination. If you're just cracking open the study materials the night before the exam, that's probably not the best case scenario. I took about a year to pass the exam, but I didn't take the challenge exam. So I sat for the traditional 3-part exam. For me, it was a full year, and that was very realistic because I didn't feel like my entire life was studying. I felt like I was able to work in a reasonable amount of studying every week, and then I was sitting for a part about once every 3 months. That worked really well for me. My boss, on the other hand, passed the exam after studying nonstop for 2 weeks. He did not have much of a life for 2 weeks. but my boss is a chief audit executive and has been an internal auditor for 20 or more years. So again, depending on what your experience level is, definitely set a study plan. Don't just wing it. Make sure that you have a plan, take that syllabus, get those study guides, go through the material. Sometimes people like to just do the practice questions. I always recommend not to do it that way. The practice questions are invaluable, but I recommend that you read the content as well. Something that we say about the traditional exam, and I think it applies to this one as well, is read your study guide 3 times through, cover to cover. And I know it's online, so it's not really cover to cover, but read it and make sure that you're comprehending it at least 3 times, so that you're solidifying those concepts in your brain. It might be helpful for you to create some flashcards. Also, really focus on those proficiency areas where you're required to apply the knowledge in real-life application. It's about having conceptual knowledge, not just about rote memorization. Make sure that you understand the application, that you could apply the concepts that you're learning to a real situation. Because a lot of the questions are mini case studies where they're giving you a scenario and saying, what would you do in this scenario? So again, we have to go beyond memorization. And then make sure that you're prepared for a computer-based test format. Most of us are pretty prepared for that these days because we're used to everything being online. But if you're used to everything being on paper, it can be challenging when you go into this computer-based test format. So some things that you can do ahead of time. If you go to the website, you can even look at what that test format's going to look like, and that's really helpful as well. And again, we want to pay special attention to the IPPF, to our standards, because that's really what this exam focuses on. You might even write your own audit manual. What would this look like, referencing the IPPF? And think about your real-life examples. In your audit department, how does this work? Now, I will say that is something good to do, but you have to be careful with that, because occasionally an audit department may not be following the standards 100%. And so if your audit department does something and it's not in accordance with the standards, then you may have a different answer than what the CIA exam answer would be. So be careful with that. But definitely think about, what are you learning on the job? Just a few tips that have worked well for me are things like, I know I like to associate a certain candy. So for example, when I was studying for my exam, I would suck on Altoids, which is a peppermint candy, when I was studying. And then I would suck on the same peppermint candy during the exam. So I feel like that helps me recall more. Some of it is just about going into the exam with confidence. Sometimes people are very anxious. And I've known some people who are wonderful internal auditors. They struggled to pass the CIA exam, not because they didn't know the content, but they struggled to pass the exam because they were anxious. And so going into the exam, feeling like you've studied as much as possible, feeling prepared, even taking into account things like temperature, making sure that you're comfortable, that can be really helpful as well. When you're taking the test, something that can be helpful is read that last sentence or question before the details. Sometimes you may have a full paragraph in the question. So you want to make sure that you read what the question is, and then when you go through the details, you have the question already in mind. Usually, if you read through the entire paragraph and then you get to the question, you have to reread the entire thing. So that helps save some time. Also, look for clue words, things like all, except, or not. All and except are very rarely going to be true, right? There usually are exceptions. And then make sure that you're thinking of your answer before you're reading the choices. Don't just read the choices. Look at the question, think of what the right answer would be, and then find the right choice that matches the right answer. Also, make sure that you're thinking globally, beyond just your own experience in industry, because sometimes your industry may not relate to some of the questions because the questions are about internal audit as a global profession. Also, it can be helpful to eliminate those obvious distractors or wrong answers first. Sometimes I laughed a few times taking the exam because there were some questions or some answers that were just so obviously wrong, and you're like, that is clearly not the answer. So eliminate those. Usually you can eliminate at least 2 very bad answers immediately, and then you're deciding between 2 better answers. So with that, you already have a 50% chance of getting it right. Also, trust your first instinct. Avoid overanalyzing. This can be hard for us as internal auditors. I heard a test strategist say once that your first instinct is almost always the right choice. And I know for me personally, I found that sometimes when I go back and I change an answer, usually I was right the first time. If you're not sure about the answer, don't skip it. Answer it anyway. You can flag it in the system to review it later. So what I like to do when I take IA exams is I'll go through and answer everything once. I make sure that I budget time to go back again and to read everything and review I review everything, but I especially review the ones that I flagged. But you don't get counted off, or an incorrect answer, it doesn't count against you. So try to rack up as many points as you can. Answer every question. Also, budget your time. Don't rush. You don't want to rush through it, but make sure that you have enough time for everything. So in this exam, you have 180 minutes and you have 150 questions. I would try to answer a question every minute at least, and then that gives you 30 minutes at the end of the exam to go back through and review everything. And of course, we want to be well-rested and comfortable for the exam, because if we're not well-rested, if we're sleep-deprived, I tell people don't cram the night before. Don't stay up until 2 in the morning the night before. At that point, your studying should already be done. I tend to not even look at the test material the night before, or if I do, I'm skimming through it, and then I'm resting, I'm waking up, having a good breakfast, and going into the exam. So we're going to do a few practice questions. I'm going to turn it over to Marie to walk us through the first practice question.
Thank you, Jamie. Yes, the first practice question should be up on your screen in the same place where the slides were. And here's the first one. Which of the following statements is true? The internal audit activity must be independent and internal auditors must be objective. The internal audit activity must be objective and internal auditors must be independent. The internal audit activity and internal auditors must be independent and objective. The internal audit activity must be independent. Internal auditors must be independent and objective. We'll give you about 30 seconds or so. Take a guess and see which one you think makes the most sense based on some of the things that Jamie has talked about. A lot of the same words in all of the answers, but go ahead and think it through. There's no points for right or wrong here. This is just a practice session, but this is to start to get you used to what the questions will look like. So Jamie, let's give them about 20 seconds or so, and anything you want to chat about on this particular question while folks are answering?
I think this one could be a challenging question if somebody hasn't read the standards. But if you've read the standards, and that's where, again, it's so important to make sure you're spending time in the study materials and also spending time reading the standards. Something that maybe I didn't mention earlier is that with your CIA Challenge Exam bundle, you also get access to the IPPF, to the standards. So I recommend, on top of reading the materials, read through the standards. I feel like when I downloaded them, they were maybe 15 pages. So they're not huge. They're not overbearing. They're very easy to read. And a lot of the questions, you're going to get the answers directly in the standards.
Great. Thank you. Let's give about 10 more seconds. Most folks are submitting their answers. And again, it's showing in the screen. Make sure once you select the answer you want, click on that submit button on the right-hand side of that slide, and that'll register your answer. Okay, about 5 more seconds. Okay, thank you all so much. Jamie, I'm going to end the poll and display the...
Interesting. We had a lot of people choose C. Can I go ahead and give them the correct answer?
Yes, please do.
Oh, sorry, I went forward one more. The correct answer is actually A. The internal audit activity must be independent and internal auditors must be objective. So if you got that one right, give yourself a huge pat on the back. That one is a hard question. So if you want to know why A is the correct answer, you can go to the IPPF Standard 1100 Independence and Objectivity. And this one is a tricky question. Objectivity refers to our state of mind. So internal auditors, we need to be objective. We need to have an objective state of mind. Whereas independence refers to the structure of the internal audit group or function. So the activity itself, the internal audit group, needs to be independent, whereas internal auditors themselves need to be objective in the way that they approach their audits. That one is a challenging one, and it involves really knowing the standards and understanding how the IIA and how the standards define independent and objective. Let's do another question.
Thank you, Jamie. Let's move to our next practice question. And here's what this asks. Which is the most advanced set of core internal audit skills? Process narratives and flowcharts, governance structure, ERM, and development of controls in the natural course of business, strong understanding of risk assessment, risk ranking, and business operations, or financial accounting, internal controls, regulations, and policies. So go ahead and make your selection. Take a little time to think about that. Click on that submit button. We'll give you about 30 seconds or so. Any advice on this question, Jamie?
On this one, I would try to think globally and as big picture as possible.
Okay. Good advice. Let's give about 30 seconds more. And we do have a couple of folks saying that they're having some audio issues, and I apologize for that. It does not seem to be a widespread issue. We have over 100 folks on the call, and I'm just wondering if you have other applications open that may be taking up a lot of your bandwidth, or there may be some audio issues on your end. But again, I do apologize, but we're not seeing that as a major issue for our folks. The playback will be available, though, or later this week. So if you are having some audio difficulties and you do want to listen to it, it will be available for you. So apologize for that. About 10 more seconds. Those results are coming in nicely. All right, there we go. Let's close this question and let's see what folks had to say. Jamie?
Interesting. People seem to gravitate toward answer C. I'm seeing that a lot of people chose a strong understanding of risk assessment, risk ranking, and business operations. I want to give everyone kudos for not picking option A, the first option, because that one is clearly not correct. Process narratives and flowcharts are not the most advanced set of core internal audit skills. The correct answer to this one is B. So 30% of you got that right. Pat yourselves on the back. Great job. Governance structure, ERM, which stands for enterprise risk management, and development of controls in the natural course of business. So when we're looking at why that's right, and this would be in your study materials, when we look at the 4 levels of internal audit function maturity, level 1 would be the lowest level of maturity, which would be our initial internal audit operations require skills in financial accounting, internal controls, regulations, and policies, so kind of that bare minimum. At level 2, we see repeatable internal audit operations that require process narrative and flowcharting skills. Then at level 3, we see defined internal audit operations require a strong understanding of risk assessment, risk ranking, and business operations, so a little bit more mature. And then at level 4, the most mature, we have managed internal audit operations, and those require skills and awareness of governance, structure development, ERM, or enterprise risk management, and business understanding of how controls are developed in the natural course of business. And really, level 4, which includes enterprise risk management, it encompasses everything in level 3. So the answer that a lot of you picked, strong understanding of risk assessment, risk ranking, and business operations, that would be level 3, and all of that would be included in the answer above it. Great job, everyone. We're going to do one more question.
All right, here's our last practice question today. Which of the following roles has day-to-day responsibility for data governance? Is it risk management, internal audit, or the board? Please go ahead, make your selection, think about the question, tell us what you'd like to see. And Jamie, any thoughts on this one while our folks are making their selection?
I'm going to give everyone a hint. Your hint is day-to-day responsibility.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we'll give a little time for folks. And the day-to-day is what Jamie has mentioned is your hint. I'm learning as you're going. I'm learning to look at those questions very carefully, so I appreciate that. Different way to look at questions.
Definitely. I found that when I've taken practice tests, if I miss a question, it's usually because I didn't read the question correctly. And then I get so mad at myself because I knew the content, but I read the question incorrectly. So it's so important to make sure we're really reading that question and thinking about what precisely does it mean.
Excellent. Good advice. Okay, about 5 more seconds, and we'll see what we come up with for this practice question. Okay, thanks everyone. Let's see those results. I'm going to display them now.
Fantastic job. You guys got it right. B, management, is the correct answer, and 86% of you got that correctly. Fantastic job. Data governance is management's day-to-day responsibility. It's not the board's day-to-day responsibility. The board is probably coming to 3 or 4 meetings a year. So it's not their day-to-day responsibility to govern data. And data governance is never internal audit's responsibility because we have to be independent and objective. And risk management, they may have some involvement in monitoring data governance, but it's not their responsibility to implement data governance. That's management's responsibility. And that's something that you would see in your study materials as well when we're talking about the different roles that we all have when it comes to governance. So great job, everyone who got that one right. And if you didn't, no problem. That just gives you some ideas of things that you're going to want to focus on when you're studying. So to wrap up, you have 180 days to register, schedule, and sit for the exam after your application is approved. I personally messed this up once. When I was sitting for my CRMA exam, I passed the 180-day window and I had to repay. So don't let that happen to you. It was worth it, but I had just forgotten about it. So make sure that you're registering, scheduling, and sitting for the exam within that 180-day window. Also, several of you have asked about CPE. You're required to report CPE hours if you get your CIA on an annual basis by December 31st every year. This is a great opportunity. I wish that I had had an option like this to just sit for one exam. When I sat for my CIA exam, it was 4 different parts. So I had to come into a test center 4 different times. This is such a great opportunity to just sit for one exam as opposed to 3 or 4. Now it's 3 exams. And to just focus on that content that wasn't included in your other examination. Again, like Jonathan said, we have more than 170,000 CIAs. This is a highly respected global certification. I love the statistic that he threw out there about how 94% of chief audit executives prefer the CIA certification to any other audit-related certification. And I would agree with that because CIAs have demonstrated their proficiency as internal auditors. There are a lot of great certifications out there, but this is the certification that is internal audit specific. I have seen some questions come in about when you are taking the exam, can you look things up? Can you look up standards? No, when you are in the exam, it's just you and that computer. So whether you take it at home or whether you take it in a testing center, it's just you and the computer. There's nothing that you're able to look up at that point. I'm not going to say you need to have the standards memorized word for word, but you definitely want to have a very good understanding of the standards because you're not getting to phone a friend when you're in the exam site. I'm going to turn it back over to Marie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And wow, we have a lot of questions that have come in. And I think I'll give you a little bit of a breather, and I'm going to start with Jonathan. Jonathan, here's a question that folks are asking. How do I know if I qualify for the challenge exam?
Great question. So once you go to that page, which does list the accounting bodies, you want to start there. After you see that you are part of that accounting body, you just want to make sure that you are an active member. Sometimes it's required that you have a letter of good standing. If you are a CPA, for instance, however, just evidence of your active license would be considered enough for the evidence. And from there, it's just a matter of you filling out the application. So it's very easy to get approved into the challenge exam program.
Okay, thank you. And another question about the CIA exam. Let's see what folks had to say about this. They're currently enrolled in the regular 3-part CIA exam, and they want to take the challenge exam. Can they transfer?
So we don't like that word transfer because it's not possible to transfer any credits or anything that was paid from one program to another. What we can do, though, is we can expire your current active 3-part application, and this will allow you to start over essentially. But this time when you apply, you'll be able to select the challenge exam as your pathway into the CIA program.
Okay, super. And one quick question before I have a few questions for Jamie. Will I be able to take the test from home throughout this year? I know coming off of 18 months, 2 years of COVID, probably a question that's still on people's minds.
Yes, it's definitely something that we're trying to stay on top of. It is a fluid situation, but as of now, we are going to continue the online testing. What we do ask is that just make sure that you check the necessary connection qualifications, because unfortunately, not everyone is able to take advantage of the online testing due to, their technology. But if it is available in your area and you've got the requirements that are met, absolutely you can take the exam from home.
Very good, thank you. And Jamie, here's a question for you about on-demand. And one of our attendees would like to know if you recommend that they take the on-demand course. Will it help them pass?
That's a great question. It really depends on you and your study style. So if you're someone who prefers to learn from an instructor versus studying on your own, then I would definitely recommend the course. But again, it's an extra fee, so I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great supplemental tool. It's not necessary for every person, so it's about knowing what study style works best for you.
Okay. And as a follow-up to that, do folks need to purchase any other study materials?
So when you register and you get your bundle, you're going to get this custom study guide, you get the reading materials, you get the practice exams, you get access to the standards. That's really all you need to prepare. You can review those study materials and you can pass the exam. So you don't need to purchase anything else unless you just want to take the on-demand course. Now, I personally think that if you are an IIA member, there's a lot of supplemental guidance that can be helpful to read, certainly helpful in preparing just to be a great internal auditor, but none of that is necessary to pass the actual exam. You have everything that you need when you register and get your bundle.
Okay, thank you. And here's a question about the questions themselves. Will the questions in the study materials be the same as on the exam?
No, wouldn't that be nice? No, it's a challenge exam. It's a closed exam. So the certification department ethically can't release the actual exam questions. Wouldn't that be kind of unethical, right? If we were selling the study materials and it was the exact same as the exam. So for lots of reasons, they're not the actual exam questions, but these practice questions are written by subject matter experts. And they directly link to everything in the syllabus. So they're reinforcing the concepts in the reading materials. They test your knowledge. There'll be different questions than you see on the exam, so don't just memorize A, B, C, D, the answers to everything. But if you're doing well on the practice questions, I feel that there's a very high correlation to how well people do on the exams because they are covering the same content.
Great, thank you. A couple of questions for Jonathan. Is there a limit, Jonathan, on how many times someone can take the exam if they fail?
No. Currently there is not a limit. You are restricted, of course, by the windows, right? So there are only every 3 months or so maybe 4 windows a year. But you are more than able to take it as many times as you need to. But after hearing Jamie talk, I feel like we should aim for a minimum of 3. Let's aim for 3. 3 is the most that we want to do right now.
Okay, thank you. And I know we had a question about taking the exam at home. So here's a question about the testing center. If the testing center reopens, can they switch to take their exam at the local Pearson View, even if they've already signed up for online proctoring?
Yeah, basically until the 48 hours of your exam. That is the cutoff, right? So not 2 days, but 48 hours. You are able to change your exam location, and you're also able to change your delivery type. So if you want to switch from online to in person or vice versa, you are able to do that all the way up until 48 hours of your appointment date.
Okay. And for those of us who may be baby boomers, I'm myself included, we have a great question. Are you allowed paper and pen during the exam at a testing center?
So at a testing center, there are a little bit different rules than online testing, for instance. There are some materials that are allowed. Paper and pencil, generally, there are some cases where, as I've seen, you have scratch paper, and then there are some cases where I've seen it is not allowed. Generally, we do give a whiteboard that is electronic, and you're able to perform the same functions that you would with a physical paper and pencil electronically. But that's only at a testing center. So I would encourage you to check with the testing center you're going to be going to just to see if there are any additional rules or regulations. Online, you are not allowed any types of materials like that because it is a online proctored exam. It's just to protect the exam integrity. We don't allow any type of scratch paper or writing utensils.
Got it. Thank you. Jamie, a question for you, please. If you can remind folks, how many practice exam questions are there in the study guide?
There are 1,000 practice exam questions.
Wow. Okay. I thought I heard that. Okay. That's a lot of questions. Very good. Thank you. And kind of a follow-up on the study guide. How long is the access to the study guide good for?
So the reading materials themselves, if you download them to your iPad or your laptop or your e-reader, you have access to those forever, for the rest of your life. Once you download them, they're yours. The online access is valid for 1 year, so that's primarily going to be to access your practice exam questions. But if you need more time, you can apply for an extension.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Jonathan, a couple of technical questions. First one is approximately how long does it take for an application to get approved?
Applications are currently being reviewed every day. So as soon as you submit the app, we're going to begin to review it. Really, most delays come with obtaining the letter of good standing from your accounting body. So we recommend that you do that part first, even before you apply. That way you can just upload everything at once, and that will improve your application approval time. Usually, worst case scenario, we'll say around 48 to 72 hours, but right now we're approving them every day.
Okay, very good. Good to know. And could you kindly explain the scaled scoring that goes on in the exam?
Yes, to a certain extent. So
don't want to give away the score. I understand.
Yeah. So basically, what it means is that it's not. So if you have 4 questions and you get 3 right, normally that's like a 75%. When we're talking skills, we're talking about the syllabus percentage. So within those 4 questions, maybe you have, 2 that are aligned to one portion and the other 2 are aligned to a different topic. When you're looking at the syllabus and that breakdown, the scale scoring talks to you about the weighted percentage. So if you've got 50% of the exam that's based on the IPVF or the standards, then you know that is going to be a huge amount of, what you're testing. In addition to that, not every question is going to be worth the same. So there's a total number of points and there's a total number of, potential points that you could get from certain questions, but it's not a 1-for-1. So when you're taking the exam, don't think, oh, well, I got, 90 questions right and that percentage says I should get this score. That's not quite how it works. For us to really, really dive into it, we would have to basically just tell you everything about the exam, which we cannot do. So that's why we encourage you to pay attention to the weighted percentage. And like Jamie said, you want to know why you're answering the question the way that you are, as opposed to just guessing and hoping to get it right.
Okay. Thank you so much. And in the time we have left, a question for Jamie. Also, a reminder, folks, that you're going to be receiving an email in the next few days with a link to the recording of this session. So you'll be able to play it back and go through all the information again. Jamie, how many hours do you recommend studying?
At least 50 is what we recommend, but we say read the study materials through at least 3 times. I would say take all the practice tests at least once. If you're scoring, we like to have you score at least in the mid-90th percentile, so like between a 94 and a 96 at least, before you feel comfortable moving on those practice tests. So all 13 practice tests and then that final kind of simulation of a test, go through all of those. If you're scoring in the mid to high 90s, then you should feel pretty confident at that point. But really it's going to be very case-by-case dependent on how many hours it takes each person to get there. For some person that might be 50 hours. For some people that might be 100 hours.
Okay, thank you. And folks, we are coming up at the top of the hour. That is all the time we have. Thank you so much for all those questions. Jamie, Jonathan, many thanks for a terrific program. Let me just share with you our final slide. You can always go to learncia.com, Challenge Exam Webinar. And again, the slides are in your resource area. Just refresh if you can't see them. And you'll receive a link to the playback for this session within the next few days. Wherever you are in your CIA journey or your CIA challenge exam journey, we all wish you the very best. Everyone take care. We're delighted you attended today. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.